I am Wild Humphrey, and they call me the Fact Master because I'll tell you all those things you never knew you didn't know, some that you do, but I'm faster than Google, and everything I tell you is from up here, and that is a fact. Now, arguably the most famous aeroplane ever to grace the skies was Concorde. This plane is the only passenger aircraft that could fly supersonic. And Concorde was launched in 1969. She'd been a venture between the UK and France, and these countries were both tied together in such a way with their agreement that no matter what, they had to stick with the programme. If one country pulled out, then they'd have to pay everything to the other, and so on. So Concorde's wheels were rolling in the 1960s. Then in 1969, on the 2nd of March, in France, Concorde took off into the skies for the very first time ever. And the world's media were there. Almost turned it into a circus, you know what the media are like, but nonetheless, this great, beautiful plane, which looked like no other plane that had ever been, took off, flew around, came back down. Fabulous. A month later, in the UK, 9th of April, off she went. The captain of controls was a guy named Trubshaw. And Trubshaw had been born in Liverpool, and he has the honour of flying the first ever UK Concorde. He didn't like all the circus that surrounded it, but he had no choice. This was Concorde, and where Concorde went, the media went, well, until she took off, that is. Anyway, 1st of October the same year, she flew supersonic for the first time. That's Mach 2 to you and me, twice the speed of sound. And this is incredible. Nothing like this had ever been done before. Passengers were just, well, the rich and famous anyway, were waiting to board Concorde. But they had to wait until 1976. And it was the 21st of January that Concorde made its maiden flight full of passengers. It flew from Paris to Rio de Janeiro and London to Bahrain that day. And the people on board just couldn't believe it. Although it cost a fortune to fly on Concorde, this experience that these all had was priceless. The champagne flowed, the food was enjoyed, and the flight was something else. And yes, she flew supersonic on that day. I say she, now there were 21 Concordes that were made actually. 14 of them were in regular use, and the remainder we used to test things on if they needed to change anything. They tried these out first before they committed anywhere else. Anyway, this bird of the skies was admired across the world, but it wasn't a commercial success quite that they wanted it to be. In fact, to start with, America wouldn't let Concorde in. Said it was too noisy, and Concorde had its sonic boom, which was a noise like no other, and would certainly break your windows. Anyway, there was lots of rules surrounding Concorde and its flight, but nonetheless, this beautiful plane still crossed the skies, and it was 1977, on the 22nd of November, that Concorde was allowed first time to land in the USA. After that, it made regular transatlantic flights. Its fastest ever flight was on the way back, when it flew from America to London Heathrow in the space of 2 hours, 54 minutes and 59 seconds. Unbelievable. People barely had time to finish the champagne. What was going on? Sat down, taking the seatbelt off, glass of champers, and they were landing, so it seemed. It's an unbelievable aircraft. And they did lots of things with Concorde to make it more viable for people to fly. And they used to do short trips, so you could still pay a fair bit. Go on Concorde, up to the sky for a couple of hours, back down, land, you've been on Concorde, and you get the gifts and everything that go with it. A letter from the pilot, all the rest of it. But a flight on Concorde, well, that was something not to be missed. If you could do it, you'd do it. And as I say, it was admired by the world and it had a perfect safety record. That is until the unthinkable happened. And that happened the 25th of July in the year 2000. Concorde took off from Charles de Gaulle Airport in France, and it was flight number Air France 4590. And as she took off, she burst into flames. This was captured on someone's little video camera, and people couldn't believe it. And they couldn't do anything about it. The plane crashed into a nearby hotel. 113 people lost their lives this day, 25th of July 2000. They just couldn't believe it. So Concorde was grounded while they went to investigate and see what had happened. And what it was, there was a piece of metal they'd found that was on the runway where Concorde had sped. And this piece of metal was thrown up and smashed the underneath carriage of Concorde below the fuel tanks. The metal itself was a long strip, about a yard or a metre or so in length. It was a bit twisted, and it had fallen from an American airline that had taken off some time before. Turns out it hadn't been fitted properly to the American aeroplane, so it had fallen off, waiting for Concorde to come by. And of course, the result was a fire and a crash and a death of 113 people. Well, all the time Concorde was grounded, lots of changes were made to the aircrafts to make its undercarriage much stronger. And it stayed grounded for over a year. Then one day they said, right, we're ready, we've done all the work, we're going to test flight Concorde, make sure we're happy with it. So they did the test flight, off it went, came back down, no problem. The only thing was, there were no press, no people, no one was bothered, no concern, nothing. The reason, because the day this flight that it took off was 9/11. And who'd have thought what was going to happen then? Obviously Concorde paled into the distance, while all the eyes of the world were on America. Nonetheless, after that they did resume Concorde flights, but various things started to annoy the French, and as soon as they could, they pulled the plug, said, look, we've had enough of Concorde, it's too expensive, it's now going to be out of date. All the reasons that they could think of, they pulled the plug. Britain had no choice but to retire the greatest aeroplane in the world. Concorde had its last commercial flight on the 24th of October 2003. Its very final flight took place on the 26th of November the same year, and that just flew from London to Bristol. And from that day to this, Concorde has been retired. Now, the various Concordes on the ground around the world that you can actually go and see on board and sit inside, walk up and down. And you might be surprised at the size of Concorde. Not that big a plane, but a magnificent plane, shaped like no other. The nose of Concorde, when it's on the ground, the nose would tilt down so the captain could see out the windows very easily, and before takeoff the nose would come back up. Off it'd go, and in a blink of an eye you'll be up in the sky, and that is a fact. So lots of people fortunate enough to fly on the world's most famous plane. named Concorde. That's just a bit about it for you. It started in 1969. First passengers 1976. Fastest flight 1996. Crashed 2003. Final flight ever 26th November 2003. And that is a fact. Thanks for watching. Please tune into my channel as much as you can. Please hit that subscribe button, because I'll be back with some more, plenty more, and that is a fact. In the meantime, cheers for watching, take it easy, don't forget to subscribe, I'll see you soon.